Recording this thing. We need some theme music. For those of you that were in our daily briefing yesterday, we were saying we need some theme music, but we don't have a song yet. All right, let me find Tim and get him to be a panelist here with me. Ethan, if you're here behind the scenes, can you make sure Tim is set up and ready to connect with us? All right, nothing like another day working from home, working remotely, right? As we all are these days, dealing with the technical limitations of Zoom and everything else going on in the world. So bear with us, we'll get started in a minute. I see about 40 folks already here, which is great. Good to have you with us. I see a lot of familiar names, so feel free to drop a little note in the chat and say howdy. I'm going to say howdy to everybody right now. Guy Allen, how you doing, mister? Looking forward to chat with you guys here later. Hello, Misty. I see Bill, I see Brent. Dallas, how you doing? Dave, Mr. Drage, Guy from First Fight. John, Justin from Manhattan. Dude, how are you? All right, let me see if Tim's getting in here. All right, Ethan, can you send the link to Tim again, and we'll get him all set up and squared away. You know how this is, folks. Let me get Tim this link here. Summon the Reverend. Indeed. Hey, Brent from LA and Roberto from Rio. How are you, mister? Zechariah from Minneapolis. Man, it's good to see you guys. So many friends. We're going to rock this. So just bear with us another minute, and Tim will be here. Up to 50 folks now. I love it. This is going to be fun. Fun like going to the dentist, right? All right. Chuck, good to see you here as well, mister. Let's see if Tim is in yet. Well, tell you what, let's, I'll get started because Tim should be here any second. He says he's on. All right. There he is. Let me upgrade him to panelist, which means it'll kick him off and he'll come back in. And then I'll make him a panelist. All right. Tim, are you there?
We did it. The Googleplex didn't let us down today. We got it up and launched.
All right, man, it's good to see your face. Everybody say hello to Tim. And Tim, it's good to be with you today. We're going to do a live stream, a webinar talking about the crazy times that we're all living in right now. And all of our clients, of course, have been asking us all kinds of questions. And we had so many conversations with them that we said, you know what, let's open this up. Let's start doing a daily live stream, which was that, did that start when? On Tuesday? I think was the first one.
St. Patrick's Day. That's right. March 17th, Tuesday.
Yeah, what was amazing about that was we put the word out because Marcel from State, if you're here, say hi. And Tim and I were having a conversation and we said, you know, let's open this up. And about 80 of you guys showed up and we realized, wow, this is an opportunity for us to all come together as a community of owners and help you guys have a dialogue and just get a conversation started. And then we said, Thursday, we'll do a more formal talk about how we manage uncertainty. So that's what we're here to talk about today. Tim, do you have your agenda up in front of you?
I have my agenda up in front of me. Joel, thanks for pulling this together too. It's been a hectic week for everyone and we know it. So we just appreciate you taking the time and joining Joel and I through this conversation. We want you to know that we are with you in the things that you have going on, and we're listening to many of you. So thanks for being part of it. You know, RevThink, what we do for a living is support this community. So anyway that we can support you, please feel free to reach out to Joel, myself, or in our Slack channel and get that information out to us so we can figure out more ways to reach out.
Yeah, this might be a good moment just to quickly say, Tim, that we do have resources for anyone that's here that doesn't know us, doesn't know RevThink or our community, that we do have a website, we have a podcast. We just started this new Slack workspace called the 7 Ingredients, which moved over from Facebook. And I think we have, what, 200 and something members there now. Ethan, you can confirm that. But if you're an owner of a creative firm, we definitely invite you to just take advantage of the resources we have, and we want to welcome you into this conversation. I will say that this presentation we're going to go through today, it is for owners. So it's for people that are running a creative firm that is, say, in that range of $1 million to 10 million a year. Certainly the principles are applicable to anyone of any size, but that's really where it's focused on. Tim, let's go through our agenda real quickly. How does that sound?
Yeah, sounds great.
I'm going to get my share up here so everyone can see. This is what we're going to go through today. So first off, we want to talk about confidence and hopefully give you a new boost of confidence despite the crisis that we're all living in. And then I'll share what I think of as a common response to crisis and what I know I did when I ran my creative firm back in the day. Then, Tim, we're going to sort of hand it off because I'll walk through and we want to talk about some front stage strategies. We'll explain what we mean by front stage. And then, Tim, I want you to walk through a bunch of backstage strategies. And then we'll just kind of wrap it up with next steps and then also leave plenty of time for Q&A. So feel free to drop questions, comments in the chat as we go along. There also is a Q&A button somewhere there in Zoom. So if you want to drop a question into the Q&A, we can certainly address it that way. But Tim, let me just ask you first. What is the role of confidence? Like, what's the big takeaway we want everybody to walk away from this conversation with today?
Well, talking to business owners, what we're recognizing is that there are people that are depending on you to give them the support and leadership they're looking for. So what we want you to know is to give you some confidence and know that you have the tools you need to get through this time. Many of you have been in practice for years. You know uncertainty because you deal with it on a weekly basis or quarterly basis or annual basis with your company anyway. We understand that this uncertainty is bigger and it's global, so it has more lasting effects. But the reality of the tools that you have, the experience and knowledge that you've brought into this, and really the resources that you know and the resources you work with every day will get you through it. And that boost of confidence is what's going to carry us forward together. Leaders really need to be able to relax and know that they have the tools necessary. So I also want to kind of think through of what that means and how it transfers to other in a sense of giving others hope. The opportunity now to be a leader and step up so that your vision and your knowledge of where we're going to go together and how you're going to build that future for yourself and for the company is going to give others hope, and they'll slow down and they'll relax and they'll get back to work and they'll know that there is a possible future for them as well. So that's our opportunity, and what we're looking forward to do today for you all is to just slow things down, walk through the basic fundamentals that you already know, and give you that confidence that you do have the right tools to get there.
I was going to share this one little bit of feedback, Tim, that we got from, I want to pronounce this name right, Catwo at Native to Noise in New York. So she was on the live stream yesterday and shared this little nugget. She gave me her permission to share this with the group because I thought it was really encouraging. She just said, I have no idea who to turn to, and your collective voices of reason is truly a North Star for small businesses. I mean, it kind of makes me emotional. For a small business owner like me, please know that even just listening to your conversations is already inspiring and allows me to problem solve conversations that I would otherwise have alone. So, Catwell, I just want to say thank you for that feedback. That was a great statement. And it's amazing how just giving everyone a place to share those concerns and hear everyone else's concerns, I think is very, very therapeutic. Tim, what was the thing that you were sharing with me earlier about the Jim Stockdale story? I wanted you to share that.
Yeah, sure. So there's this thing that Jim Collins, and if you're a friend of business books, Jim Collins books are like business porn, right? Like it's the stuff you get off the shelves at the airport and you just read them like crazy. So everyone knows his book, Good to Great. And what I love about Jim Collins is he's thinking through like an economist of what makes the difference from person to person or company to company. And one of his discoveries is what he calls the Stockdale paradox. And it comes from Admiral Jim Stockdale, who was a high-ranking military official during Vietnam, and he was a prisoner in the Hanoi Hilton. He was there for 7 years and tortured nearly 20 times. So desperate situation, not one the human leaving prison camp, said he was stronger than he went in. So Jim Collins, the author, calls this the Stockdale paradox. And this is Admiral Stockdale's quote: "Despite all circumstances, I never ever wavered in my he mentioned that this is a great moment that he had to do something else with. But in a way, that depression, he also always had to face reality. He recognized that always waiting for Christmas to come, and at Christmas they'd be let out. And year over year, Christmas would come and they wouldn't be freed. So those people that lost hope would also lose the ability to stay alive. So put up that second quote, Joel.
Sure.
So then he realized that in order to not lose hope, he thought this: you must never ever confuse, on one hand, the need for the absolute, unwavering faith that you can prevail despite the constraints within, and on the other hand, the need for the discipline to begin confronting the brutal facts, whatever they are. And today, the confidence we're talking about comes from this Stockdale paradox right here, that there are absolutely things that are true, and never confuse those items on hand that are absolute. In my case, my belief is that there's a God. God is in control and he knows great things. So whatever your personal faith is and how that carries you through, let that be stable and know that there is a future. There's a great hope, and we will get to the other side of this. Many of us who went through the 2008 crisis know the feeling at that moment. We never wanted to deal with this again, but here we are. And we know that there's something great on the other side. Many of us, even our businesses, prevailed on the other side. But the second part of that paradox is this: never let the truth of the situation also escape you. So don't only look towards the future and think, oh, Pollyanna, this is going to be okay. How do we deal with this moment? And that's kind of our agenda today. How do we help you understand the big picture, fundamental principles that you can deal with today?
Yeah, and I'm gonna pull up a slide now that is maybe something you can all relate to, and hopefully we're having a good connection here. I'm getting some stuttering and stuff, so hopefully if I'm not coming through, please let me know. Okay, Ethan. But let me share this this slide. I want to share this common response to crisis, and I just want to come to you as a sort of a former owner myself, that I've been here, I've felt this way, I've dealt with this. And here's my slide that's going to maybe make you laugh. One of my old friends used to say, sometimes it's easier to laugh than it is to cry. Now, the reason I thought about this image of Wile E. Coyote is, as the business owner, it's amazing how much time and energy and grit and determination it takes for you to build and build and build and build for years. And then one day when the earth starts shifting underneath you, there's this obvious reluctance to change it, to tear it down, to disassemble it, to rearrange it, because you've got such an investment. But what happens is there's this tendency that as the owner, you get out ahead where there's no solid ground underneath your feet. And before you know it, you wake up and realize and fall. And there's this loss, there's this regret that comes from not having managed the uncertainty. So this is a conversation I've been having all week with owners that are basically saying, maybe I can this, and I hope this will happen. And when that maybe happens, maybe I'll do that. And here's my encouragement to you. Don't put hope in things you cannot control, but rather be proactive with what you do control. And Tim, I want you to walk through later when we get into the backstage, especially what this looks like. How does this work? But it's this idea of hope is not a plan, but instead you actually do have a lot that you do control. So we're going to focus on how do you be proactive in those areas. Okay, Tim, do you want to comment on that before I get to the next little topic here?
Yeah, for us, Joel, you and I have two different backgrounds. I came from I've been in the industry for 25 years, coming from large production companies, putting operations in place, and really building some of the fundamental principles and operations underneath businesses. So Imaginary Forces, Trailer Park, those companies I worked at were big operating machines. And we were always working through the variables, trying to figure out what the decision points were going to be, how to see those decision points, and even how to project possible futures based on those items. Joel, you came from the business owner point of view. So you're the guy in the seat who was always thinking through the uncertainty, probably had more sleepless nights than I did as an employee. Although I didn't sleep much, but that's just because the projects just went hundreds of hours. But that 3 a.m. issues that you like to talk about are the ones that the thoughts of what if, and what if.
Yeah.
When what I kind of always dealt with is when do we, and that what if of always wondering what else is out there, how's it going to get me, what else is possible, and where would it come from? And then the analysis that I bring to the table, which is, well, when this happens, then we'll do A, and when this happens, then we'll do B, and be able to put those two together is really some of the thoughts we have here. So that thought of like hope isn't a plan, totally agree with that. That's always just wishing and wanting for something. But this proactive nature of being able to see the road ahead, know that you have the resources and tools to get there, and then when do we implement that? That's where we're going to talk about in the front of office and behind front of stage and backstage issues and strategies.
So let me get to that. We're going to divide the meat of this topic here into these sort of two categories, meaning we're going to talk about front stage strategies and backstage strategies. And really what we mean by that is client facing. These are the things that you do that have to do with your marketing and your sales and your accounts, versus backstage, which is all of the operations, the finance, and the production ingredients. So I'll first start off by talking about front stage. And I just want to remind everyone that Tim and I are big believers in this principle we call sales does not solve all problems. Or I guess the converse of that is that sales solves all problems. It is a myth. But instead, I want you to think in these terms. When you think about the front stage of your business, here's what I'm hearing a lot of owners ask. What should I do? Like, how should I reach out and offer? How can I generate some new sales? How can I fill my sales pipeline? And those aren't bad questions, but I simply want to give this analogy that Tim was talking about yesterday. He mentioned, it's kind of like you're driving down the road and you come upon a car accident and there's people injured, they're hurting, and you rush over to the scene and you immediately say, hey, can I sell you some bandages? It's really not the time to make an offer. And even Marcel from State yesterday mentioned this on our live stream. It's really not the appropriate thing to do to say, hey, I've got a thing that meets your need. It's really a better time to just simply reach out and start with empathizing. This is the moment for you to connect with all of your clients that you know, to empathize. And then I'm going to bring up my screen here again. Then just listen. Just listen. And be sure that you are getting to the heart of the matter, what they're feeling, not only professionally, but personally, and just what's going on in their world, because then your opportunity is to simply help. And this is not even putting an offer forward. This is really saying, I have a lot of resources at my disposal. How can I help? What can I do? What can I do to just get you through this? We'll figure out the money and the deal later. What can I do for you? And this is a lot of time, I think, the moment, Tim, when a client, like their shoulders sort of drop a little and they say, oh my God, I'm so thankful that you said that, because I'm not really sure what to do. Money is suddenly tight. Payment terms are getting weird, but I need help, right?
Yeah, exactly right. The issues that we're facing are not just unique to ourselves. There's an industry that is being affected in different ways. Some of us are recognizing that there's opportunity popping up because you're in post-production, and the working from home environment might be something you've practiced for years already. So this innovation and change isn't hitting you as drastic as others who have, work with their hands or own camera equipment and make a living really in small packs of people that do shoots every day. And they don't have a choice right now. That choice has been removed from them, and they're thinking through what comes next and how do we get there. So speaking to that broad audience, looking at the realities that are now there, the opportunities or the crisis that you might be thinking. We want to give you some methods and thoughts of like how to process through those and be able to look at them through a new light, recognizing the issues that you have are things that you can deal with and get to the other side of.
So Tim, one other thing I'll just mention, because I don't want to act like doing business development is a non-starter right now. I'm not saying that. I would actually encourage everyone, this actually is a great time to reach out. And I would encourage you to actually start reaching out even at scale. Find ways to put your marketing messages out there and how you're helping what you're doing, but also look at it as an opportunity to scale up your one-on-one conversations. So if you've never built a sales pipeline, if you can't have 30 conversations at once, consider putting some tool like that in place right now, because as we go through the next 6 to 12 months, that sort of scale is going to make a big, big difference. So a lot of you have free time on your hands because some of the projects got canceled, postponed, what have you. So find ways to be smart and reinvest that time into some of these efforts that will put you in a good position in the months ahead. But I think it's, Tim, do you want to comment on that, or do you want to take us into some of the backstage concepts we want to walk through?
Yeah, we'll take it backstage, and just leading on to that thought is the innovation that's about ready to take place is something that you all get to be a part of. So we want to give you the basic principles to build the building blocks from. When we say backstage, what we mean are the items that are inward facing, probably where more of your stress is. The outward facing things that Joel's talking about are really great. It's an opportunity to be encouraging to others, reach out and discern what new opportunities might be available. Some pipelines haven't stopped at all. They're looking for delivery. Joel and I just got a phone conversation with somebody that is doing a product launch, and they're not going to stop. Basically said, hey, their shareholders won't let them stop in their innovation and launch of that product. So there's still lots of work to be done in certain areas.
Yeah, Tim, let me actually pause for a second and mention this quote, because I forgot I had a slide on this. This one might really surprise some people, because I was talking with a media buyer, and she was talking about how crazy these times are, but actually in a good way. And this was her quote. Let me just share this, because I know this is going to come out a little bit out of left field considering all the news you're hearing. But she had this to say. She said, clients and advertisers want to double down right now because we have a captive audience. People who were previously unreachable are now glued to their screens. And then she said, viewers are not time shifting. They are watching good old fashioned real-time TV and second screens, which includes ads. So her encouragement was, hey, if you're in the space of advertising, if you're an agency, if you're even working with brands directly, just realize that this shift has, the cheese necessarily hasn't gone away. It may have moved, and the needs are now, instead of here, they're over here. Maybe the broadcast and the real-time nature of this news cycle that we're in is somewhere where you can solve someone's problem and really help somebody meet a need.
So let's start talking about some practical things that we can get into. As business owners, we're really focusing, like I've been saying, on the fundamentals for yourself. To begin with, let's just talk about recognizing the challenge. The challenge at hand really is twofold. We have that outside challenge of the virus itself. Some of that has created a mob mentality. Some of our greatest challenges is toilet paper and milk. I know in our area, Trader Joe's, the shelves are completely closed, and Trader Joe's isn't even opening the doors for us right now because there aren't supplies to our area. So those are unusual problems I never expected to have to deal with in my lifetime in the little town that I live in. The other part is some cash reserve. There are some things that mob mentality is pushing things to the outside, and now I'm more desperately looking for items I never thought I needed to deal with. So that's the outside, the virus itself, the mob mentality, some of the desperation of the world that's around us. And in that case, we are all leaders. We're leaders not only in the office, but at home. And this dynamic we're dealing with in trying to keep the momentum going for work, because that's going to be a reality for your family. And then having your family right outside your door, because they're also home from school. They're dealing with homework. They're trying to figure out, in my family's case, we're trying to figure out with a wedding that just got canceled on us. There are so many other things we're juggling all at one moment. So I want to just recognize that challenge is real, and it's not your fault. You're not doing this by yourself. We're all kind of dealing with those items. The other thing we should recognize as business owners is the challenge at hand within our own business. And what I want to do there is actually just look at specifically those areas that we can analyze and have an effect over. Because what we don't want to do is put our head in the sand and run away and pretend like they don't exist. Really, this is the opportunity to pull some things up. We're going to recognize that there's decisions that we've been postponing for a while, and now is the time to take care of them. There's been some disruption happening in our industry for many, many years, and this is just bringing it to a head and kind of putting that first thing first in front of our life. So I think about many times in the industry and some of this disruption that has taken place, and really, how do we react to it and understand it in a good way? So one, I want you to acknowledge the challenge. And really what I mean by that is, whatever those challenges are, grab a piece of paper and a pencil and write them down. I want you to think through what those issues are, almost like a to-do list of things that you need to accomplish, and then prioritize them. Put them out in front of you so that you know that you're on the right pace to solve those problems. There's no reason to solve them all at once, even though they feel like they're all at once. But make sure you get the toilet paper and the cashew nuts and the milk in your refrigerator before you deal with the business items. But when you get down to this thing, I want you to get in front of you and recognize it and really acknowledge it.
Hey, Tim, let me also just add something there that to really get something practical out. And that is, whatever active projects you have currently, on your docket or in your production pipeline, just remember that those deliverables were envisioned weeks ago or months ago. And it's an opportunity for you to lead, like Tim is saying. Go to that client and say, is this still solving the problem? Because I've actually heard some stories of some of our clients where the studio or the production company went to their client and said, I'm sorry, this spot sucks. This doesn't work anymore. We can't run this. We need to adjust. This is tone deaf. We need to adjust this message and shift these deliverables, change the subjective nature of the creative work. So just remember, this is an opportunity for you to lead, and this is one way that you can create value. And I think often the clients that are they're appreciative because they want your expertise.
Joel, that's so great, because that client that you're working with and you're giving feedback to also has their kids outside their door and no food in their Trader Joe's. So it's good to collaborate with them, be honest and be transparent, and really do solve the problem at hand. So I love that. My second piece of advice really is just watch the inputs. Be careful of where you're receiving the information. One thing that's been interesting to me, Joel, over the last couple of days, and I had to start asking the question up front. I had to start asking people, well, what is it that you believe about this situation? Because I realized my perception of and my belief of how long it's going to last and what it means, it doesn't always match each of our clients' worries and concerns. So to ask them first, do you believe this is a 2-week issue? Do you believe this is an 18-month issue? Do you believe that this is the end of the world? Do you think things will continue? So that the strategies would match their worldview and what's going on. So for me, that's watching the inputs, where you're getting information. I am not much of a news junkie, but I could say as of last Wednesday, I was watching it pretty frequently. That the news cycle had nothing new to say, except for it seemed like every government official was trying to outdo the previous government official and what kind of lockdowns they were doing. So I kind of just slowed down and realized I have to deal with my own reality. I kind of turned off the TV. Politics have been decided now, and the lockdown is there. So how do I start dealing with some of the reality? And I started picking up other books. I have all these great business books, all these like long-term principles that I know are true. I started focusing on those things that have always been true and will be true, and watch those inputs. Make sure you know what that information is, and that goes with the people you're talking to as well.
So give me an example of some inputs that are actually inside your business that you would put your eye on, that you would reevaluate or reassess.
Yeah, we talked about this yesterday on the live stream too. Like you're going to have employees that are worried about the more pressing issues in their life, might be their health, their concern contracting the virus or having the virus in relation to their family members. So they really have a primary worry and concern of the health risks themselves in this situation. But that might be siloed to a few people in your entire business. I'm trying to get business owners to recognize, like, make sure you have sympathy and understanding for that and are dealing with that in a proactive and healthy way. But don't let that everyone in your business worry about that contagion if it's not relevant to them. So don't let that one input affect all the decisions you're making and kind of panic within your business. That crisis mechanism we have in our brain, that reptile brain that gives us that fight and flight decision making, is not the healthiest one to use at this moment. We want to slow things down, analyze things for real, create a plan, and move on. So that's one of the inputs. The other one would be, just because one client or your competitor or a vendor is having an issue doesn't mean you're going to have an issue, the same issue. But reverse of that, just because it looks hopeful right now, I would also recognize, like, be honest with yourself. Some clients aren't telling you. Some clients might not know their own outcome. So they can be giving you a false hope that everything will be okay in 6 months, 8 months, 12 months, and they're keeping you at work. And many of us are going to deal with issues that, well, we spent the money and employed our employees, and you're actually not giving us the check that we deserve. Our accounts receivable are slowed down. So I want people to recognize the input, understand what's necessary for them, and then really start organizing their thoughts in that way of making clear of what their vision and their direction and their principles are going to be. The third thing I would recognize here also is, remember the resources that you've developed. Your resources aren't just the things that you own and the people that you've hired, the employees that you have at hand or freelancers. You have for years been developing this influence. And if you know me in the 4 stages of the creative career, that I've asked you all the time to leverage that influence, leverage those conversations, relationships that you've had, leverage that knowledge base and the experiences that you've lived with year after year after year, and know that those are still true today. So remember those resources, because that's what you're going to use to get you past this moment. But let me say it like this too. The future is inevitable. It's coming at you. So you can choose to have this moment be an accumulation of things in the past and be afraid of the future, or you can let the future be true for you, regardless of what the circumstances might be, and use these resources today to get you to into that future and to those results you're looking for. So analyze, remember those resources, write them down, make sure you also know what's available to you, and start working through those resources to make the plan and strategy for your course and backstage issues.
Yeah, Tim, I was also just going to mention that Nasia's already posted a question in the Q&A, which is great because we will reserve a bunch of time at the end for Q&A. So feel free to use that tool if you want to drop a question in there. There's a lot of good stuff going on in the chat here, which I'm going to try and scan and pick up bits and pieces as we go along for once we're concluded and we want to get into Q&A. But Tim, now I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on your third point, because I know you're about to talk about decision points. And for me, that's probably the biggest thing, right? Is every owner's asking about timing. Like, when do I make this decision? When do I make this choice? When do I let go of this resource? That kind of thing. So I'm going to let you continue because I can't wait to hear what you say.
Yeah, sure. You and me both. No. Yeah, the decision points that we're up against really could fall into 3 categories. Let's think of them like this. You have the vulnerabilities, so where you could be hurt and issues that you might have, things that you know that you're weak in, and things that need to be strengthened. You have the risks. That's making certain decisions that might or might not take place. So vulnerabilities are your weaknesses. Your risks are looking through the gains or losses from the decision you make. And the last one is opportunities. When I talk about reassessing your decisions, what I want you to think about here is where do you actually want to end up? When you started your business, when you put things into practice and you made certain decisions, where did you think you're going to end up? Because if you can see a pathway from here to there, the steps from this point to where we're going to end up in the future are really aligning those decisions up piece by piece. So, again, like just Google the process of goal setting. Make sure you line out your objectives and your strategies and your principles to get you from point A to point B. And reassessing those challenge or those decision points, and reassessing the resources that we have and decision points really get down to a few key issues for every one of us business owners. The first point of business is cash itself. That's one of the resources that we have and decisions we get to make from this point on. And I know we're talking to business owners and we have a large audience here, but the reality is that the greatest place we spend money is on people. And it's probably the first place we go to and wondering if we should keep them or lay them off in this time of crisis. And it can sound very cold and worrying about that and only worrying about yourself. And I understand that. This, again, goes back to the principles and knowledge you have personally about your business. But if there were decision points that you were waiting for a moment, this might be the moment to look at those people and let them go. Someone asked me yesterday, is this the right time to let go of my receptionist? And that was a really hard decision for me to walk through with them, because clearly they don't have phones to answer if they're going to be working from home week after week and month after month. So that job itself, to keep paying somebody for work that they're not doing, feels very, very cold in the situation, because that person that you're laying off won't have the resources they need to survive. But if the decision was keep the receptionist or keep some of the key players around and help them survive, it's a hard decision that we're going to have to walk through sometimes. So think about that. The resources you'd have is money. The next thing I want you to kind of think about in the decision points is really the clients you're working with. You yourself have a vision and you have a purpose for your company. Make sure you're working with clients that are core to your belief, and making sure you're working with clients that are worthwhile and strong to work with. What we don't want you to get into is very risky situations with people, saying yes to anything because of a promise of a long-term payment. And if that company is not solid, they don't match your long-term goal, or can really get you into desperate situation where you've paid out vendors and freelancers and staff to do work and they won't pay you back. This is the time to recognize that risk and be willing to say no to clients that you don't think are going to get you to the finish line. You definitely, in that same situation, want to recognize clients that will get you there. And as Joel said early on, those are the clients you're going to reach out to and get a clear assessment of their current goals, objectives, and resetting those to meet the long-term needs.
Yeah, that's what we just call, it's always good to do a listening tour at the appropriate time. But there's something to be said for going out and listening without really any agenda other than, I just want to hear. I just want to know what's going on with you. But Tim, what were the other items in that list that you were going to get to? I'm going back to the notes here.
Yeah, sure. My last point here is I call reimagine your future. And really what that is, and I saw Justin Barnes's comments on the chat here, is there is some interesting things that are taking place and opportunities that would have never been available to us without this crisis coming to hand. One of them on a very small level, but I think is very wide and will be very relevant to all of us, is that we're all learning how to work from home. We're all learning what it takes. We're buying the right chairs. We're upgrading our internet. We're getting our systems in place. And that work from home environment is going to become more familiar to us over the next few weeks. As we do that, I would imagine that people coming back to work might ask you, hey, now that I kind of work from home a lot and we put in some systems, can I just work 3 days in the office and 2 days at home? That's going to be an opportunity for both sides, both parties involved. You might find that you would be able to not pay as much for that same resource if you give them the freedom to work from home. That person might have a better lifestyle and be retained in your company. So that's great. But you'll also see that you can scale. Imagine having a limited space that now you can push out to other people's home offices and other facilities because you've learned how to work together. That is an opportunity that's going to come, and we're going to be investing in the next few weeks a lot in our infrastructure, how we communicate, which software we use, how we recognize, if something's done or not. Slack channels, hopefully they'll eventually get organized into relevant channels instead of what I don't understand about Slack is how I can keep up with all the conversations. But I think we're all going to be smarter of what it means in this environment. And if the Googleplex stays around, we'll be solid on the other end of this thing too. So that's the opportunities we're looking for coming out that way. On a larger scale, there's going to be some. Oh, Joel, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to sort of dovetail with what you were saying there, and that is, Tim and I really wondered, okay, how much should we talk about the future? You guys probably know that Tim and I, we love talking about the future. Our whole mission statement is the best way to deal with the future is to create it. But we felt like we didn't want to meet you on the roadside after the accident and start talking about, hey, after you heal from this injury, it's going to be wonderful. But just know that that's where our heads are starting to go soon. And so we just invite you to stay part of this conversation with us, because we do have a lot of thoughts on what is the new reality that's going to be emerging out of this situation, and what are some of the practical things that we can start doing as business owners to responding to those. How can we actually go out and create needs, which is a rather bizarre concept. But this is a part of reimagining the future, Tim, that I think you're talking about.
Yeah, this is absolutely that way. I always get the sense that when we talk about the future, it seems very heady to some people, but the reality is, like, if you're going to live in the future and something's going to be true about you, you have to recognize the pieces and parts today to make that true. The opportunities that we're seeing now in growth and in experience, I think is going to be something that we'll always be leveraging, and remember this moment as the tipping point that we became an online community. I also believe the way people are making content and advertising is going to be absolutely different in the very near future. In some very obvious ways, if you don't have television networks doing upfronts, if they're canceling pilots, if they're not making movies and TV shows because they can't shoot them, if sports is not being able to be seen on television, if there are no politics, all we have is airtime. And all we can live with in airtime is past archived programs. So that stuff's going to start filling up the content space. And we will quickly run out of that as well. I almost have burned through all my Netflix and Amazon already, right? So even the OTT platforms and the billions that have been infused into those platforms, we're going to burn through that content really shortly. So on the other side of that, you have advertisers that still need to promote, and you have content that needs to be filled. If you put those two together, we're going to find some very interesting branded content opportunities in the near future, because the airtime and the media buy space and the content creation all coming together is going to, one, change the way we create content and view content, but also how we promote and advertise it and how we participate inside of it. And many of us creative entrepreneurs are riding that same wave if we're making advertisement, commercials, promotions, design, film, visual effects. All of that is affected in that way. This is the restart for our industry and a growth that we're going to see soon. So I hope that this opportunity that we're seeing, although huge, is one that starts breaking into new opportunities for this time and this generation to rebuild the content platforms for us.
So in effect, Wile E. Coyote is going to grow wings, or he's going to create some sort of so rather than just running along the plain old boring ground, there's going to be some new reality that he's going to discover that keeps him from crashing to the earth.
Yeah. So Joel, to focus on specifically for each individual owner here really is, you want to ask yourself the question, how are you uniquely placed to help consumers right now? Like, what is it that you are uniquely capable of doing so that your clients know how to use you and what you're capable of doing out on the outside of this? A lot of the work you do, Joel, in finding your genius and in Jumpstart helps us analyze that and find that genius and position us in such that great way. I think we're looking for similar return with the reset landscape here. So again, like I always feel like a little bit guilty when I talk and give too much hope too soon, because I know that it's a long road to get there, and you're going to need to put tools and analysis and people in place to make it there. But the outcome will be there. I'll just say in 2008, when that crisis took place, or 2009, I had just started my business. And I barely had any clients on the roster. And when that crisis hit, it got pretty desperate. But one thing I learned from Garson Yu of Yu and Company is that he worked very hard. And when times got tough, he worked even harder. So when he didn't have work to do, we were making our own posters, we were making our own trailers, we were editing film reels for projects that never even existed, because he wanted to prove that his capabilities were still relevant. And it always got him out of that down cycle. In a way, we have that same opportunity as leaders within our own company. Your folks want to stay busy. They want to know that there's a possibility of something on the other side, and your vision and your purpose gets there. The greatest tool you have in this case is your imagination. You have to sit down and find that imagination and be able to write that down and understand the parts your vision and how you're going to get from point A to point B in that side of that vision.
Yeah, something I'll say, Tim, to everyone here, because I'm sure everyone's asking, okay, great, how? Walk me through it. We'll get there. That's just hours and hours of further conversation that I think we'll get to, because you know this, Tim. I was asking you, should we actually help people see, here's the tools that we use to recognize decision points. Here's the method. Here's how you can look 10 or 12 weeks into the future and see where the money is and your production pipeline and all those decisions. So I think all those things are out there, and they'll be part of the conversation as we unfold. But I think, as you said, just going back to the fundamentals, it is your genius and how it finds its expression in your positioning in the marketplace, and how that's going to meet those evolving needs in the weeks ahead, that's going to really determine your success in the future. And so just know that it's there. As you say, Tim, there's always something in the box.
There's always something in the box, right? And that's why we got into this industry, and that's why we became business owners, is that we know the challenge and know we can get to the other side of it. So Joel, let's give people some pretty practical things that they can do kind of right now in response to what's happening in the industry and with their business.
Let's do it. I'm going to go back to my notes and just make sure I haven't forgotten anything here. There's obviously, I think, going to be some specific questions that people have posted about getting paid, about when do I lay somebody off, should we shift people to freelance, all kinds of things like that. But let me also just give some people some advice or suggestions on where this conversation will continue. For those of you that have joined our 7 Ingredients Slack group, this is purely a free resource that we're just making available to the entire community. So if you're a business owner, you can get into that Slack group, and we have topics for all 7 ingredients. And I think the finance ones and the production channel and operations are probably the busiest ones right now. But go ahead and jump into that, because we will post updates when we are going to try and continue to do a daily briefing. So Tim and I will jump on for half an hour each weekday to keep processing these things with you guys. Tim, what do you want to add?
Yeah, let's talk about how to kind of move forward through this. Besides the resources that RevThink has built up, that we have other folks that we follow as well. I love Jonathan Stark. I love David C. Baker, Blair Enns. They have some great thought leadership, and I'd recommend their podcasts and their email list as well. But now that again, my encouragement is take our advice today and just slow down, write it down, and get some plan out in front of you. Use that imagination, get some understanding of your risk, your vulnerability, and your reward or opportunity side of your decisions. And then it's time to respond. And I think this is the part where we all get stuck, because a lot of the questions, Joel, that you just brought up are the questions that people really want to know the answers to. Is this the time to let this person go? Should I be reaching out to clients now, or should I wait a week from now? And those little decision points are the ones that we have to start building up piece by piece. So let me just give 3 easy steps of how to build up a response to your plan. The first thing I'd ask you to do is take the time to summarize your plan. Sit down, understand what's going to be, and feel free to write it up. If you're working with others, this would be something you'd want to share with them. So get on a Zoom call with them, or Hangouts call with them, and walk them through what that plan is. If you have a leadership team, you might want to share that plan with them first. So share that summary with them first and let them respond to it. Their ownership into your plan is going to be the one that helps them develop those future decisions in each of the areas that they cover. So building up that rapport and that ownership with your team is very important, and they're the first step to rolling out the plan for yourself. They'll also understand the why underneath the decisions you're making. So when you give them a plan, give them a summary of the plan, and you can roll that out and they own it, they'll understand the why underneath it. And so then they're getting you to that goal post as well. I think of Justin Barnes and what he does at Versus. He is a very strong leader, a very dynamic leader, and he almost has no fear, right? You can listen to him on our podcast.
It's why we love him.
Great to listen to him, right? And in that strength that he has, it's because he's firing all the time, thinking of all the opportunities and resources that are there. But then he has this solid team that when they sit down, they're in sync and they can roll out those decisions together. So Justin, I'm going to imagine sometimes you're really far out there, but your team needs to own that decision you're making or that vision you have so they can get you to where you want to go. That rollout and their response and buy-in is a big part of it. So summarizing your plan is there. Involving your leadership is key. And then lastly is, how do we communicate that to our team and our customers? I don't know about you, Joel. I think every mailing list I've ever subscribed to has shown up in my inbox telling me how they're taking care of things and what their vision is and purpose is. Some of them are horrible. They just seem not very thoughtful and tone deaf to the situation. And others seem right on point. And if they feel on point because you feel that the person is saying that is giving you that confidence that they can get you to where you want to go, or make you feel like they're going to be the right person to follow through this crisis. So that last step of communication is that last step of confidence. In communicating it to your customers, we want you to just simply understand what your plan is and tell them, hey, at this point, we're working from home. We recognize that this might be something that will last days or months. No matter what, we're capable of handling that. The way we're handling our situation is through these protocols that we have or are developing. And then when you have a need, feel free to reach out to us. We'll make sure we can plug you into our pipeline and keep moving things forward. And Joel, I think you have some pipeline ideas too.
Well, I was just going to comment on what you said there, and that is, I would encourage everyone, I don't want to be too harsh here, but don't view this crisis as an opportunity to send out a big marketing email blast that's really marketing, because you're saying, here's what we're doing in response to the crisis, and all of our systems are up and running normally, and this, that, and the other. I mean, if I'm just really honest, clients don't care about that kind of a message. Now, if you call me and you want to talk with me on the phone because I have a project that's currently being in your post-production pipeline, great. Thank you. I appreciate that reassurance. But to just send a message out to thousands of people to say that our server farm is still rendering, no, I don't think that's appropriate. But on the other hand, Rob Wagner, it stimulated yesterday. Tim, you and I were doing a one-on-one with him, and he had a message he was sending out that was this incredible moment of just saying, here's what Stimulated is doing. We are offering at cost services for these types of clients that have these kinds of mission purpose-driven opportunities. And it was this moment of, we're doing something about it. Do you want to come along with us? Because we're not going to complain. We're not going to be afraid. We're going to take action. And I thought that was a great example of how to communicate. To your point about Sales pipeline. Yes. Thank you for the reminder. I'm going to bring up my screen. Most of you probably know I'm just kind of a nut when it comes to the marketing and sales ingredients. And I have almost finished this new module that I don't have a home for yet. It's like a bonus module I have in my Jumpstart Accelerator. I just want to give it to anyone here for free. Because if you don't have a sales pipeline, I know this, that your ability to scale up these personal conversations and reach a lot of people, talk to a lot of people all at once is very, very limited. And if some of the tools, principles, ideas that I have in this module could help you, I just want to share this with you for free. So just DM me in Slack and I'll make sure that you get this module. And if you start using a sales pipeline, I know, especially when I look into the future, a year out, this is the kind of thing that gets a lot of studios out of this feast and famine cycle that we all know so well. And obviously none of us are going to be most of us are not going to be feasting anytime soon anyways, but maybe we can help not make that famine quite so deep. So please DM me in 7 Ingredients if you think that would be a valuable resource to you.
So if you don't know what a sales pipeline is for you, it helps you manage the conversations, because you know how you have that fear that things are always falling through the cracks, and I wonder if I'm supposed to reach out to that person, and did I send them the message or not? There are some simple tools to put in place to kind of relieve the stress of that and really roll out a strategy of communication. But Joel, I'm going to share one quote to kind of start wrapping us up here. I was listening to another person's presentation, and they brought this quote from a gentleman named Robert Updegraff. And he says this: "A man should be grateful every hour of every day for the troubles of his job. They pay at least half of his wage or salary. For if there were no troubles, it would be easy to get someone to do his work for half, or even a third of the pay he is getting." In reality, us business owners, that is exactly what we do, right? We are actually daily looking for problems to solve. And those problems that fit our resources and our needs are the perfect fit for us. I'm very sorry this is happening to us. This is not something that any of us expected. Some of this is coming at the absolute wrong time in our career, in our life, in our family. And we really do understand that. Our hearts go out to you and the desperate and concerned issues that you're having and the stress that this is bringing on. As a creative entrepreneur, there are things that we actually wanted to do for a living, and the world is slowing us down from those. And we really do get that. But our desire is to give you the vision and hope that there is something else on the other side. And you are here for your time and your generation. And this is part of the decisions that you get to make to be a leader in this industry today. And we're so thankful that you're doing the job you're doing. So please embrace these troubles. Apply the work, experience, and knowledge that you already have, that you are already doing out there every day. And just know that you are already set up for it. And then lastly, if there's anything that Joel and I can do, please reach out to us. Our Slack channel is open almost 24 hours a day. It seems to be more than ever before, but something we truly love to do and serve and love to serve in that way. So include us in that journey as well.
All right. Well, instead of recapping, because we're right at the 1 hour point, I'm going to just bring up my screen and say, let's do some Q&A, because we've got, I think I see 6 juicy questions that people have posed. And by the way, if you want to raise your hand and actually have a conversation with Tim and I verbally, I don't know if time will permit, but feel free to raise your hand if you want to talk with us. Tim, I'm going to pop up in the Q&A. And Nasia, how you doing, Nasia? From faculty dropped this question for us. She said, our clients are scrambling. They have a ton of needs, but they don't want to ask for help because they don't have budgets. It's either paying us or keeping their employees. Do we take a risk and offer our help at low to no cost, assuming we become invaluable once things settle down?
Yeah, that's a strategy. And so that's a strategy that works for you. I think that's a great way to do it. One thing that Joel and I kind of put into our working model and the way we help and serve others is we say we work for the thank yous, or we say something like we work very hard and sometimes we get paid for it. And it doesn't mean that we don't get paid for the value that we bring to others. It's just that the thought of like, you're always on our mind and there's things that we can do to contribute. The risk of that is what we call commoditization. Like you can't underplay and prove that you actually have no value. So you have to be clear on what your strategy is and how you're going to play that out. But that is a possible strategy if you know what the upside long-term play is and you know how to get from here to that long-term play, then it's definitely a very viable way of doing it.
Yeah, I would agree. I think, we spoke with a client yesterday, Tim, who let's just put it point blank, has deep pockets because there was a prepayment on a really big 7-figure project. So he's like, hey, I've got the cash and I can ride this out. But he was in a sense making investments like Nacio was saying. And that was, I'm going to step up and figure out to do things in a way that are at no cost because I know this will, it's like that, putting that thing out to the universe. It's the golden rule. It's karma. And so he's in a position to move forward with that strategy, whereas obviously some people here are not.
Yeah, right, Joel. The thing we say, the abundance mentality instead of the scarcity mentality, right? But be clear on your strategy and make good decisions along the way.
So here's another question. Let's see, this one from Greg. This is a very simple but super loaded question. Greg Kupiec. Greg, you said, when to lay off versus furlough versus pay cut based on cash and the expected AR lag to come. So Tim, you wanna take a crack at that beast?
In all reality, I can just give you general advice. We have to look at this on a case by case basis, even who this talent is and what your long-term strategy is for each one of them. Clearly, you will eventually, if you have no money, you won't be able to pay them anyway. So to some degree, it's almost fair today to let them go and give them a chance to work somewhere else, or give them the understanding they need to find other revenue sources during this time period. There's plenty of work to do. And if they could shift from your company to another company, they might actually be able to last longer in a downturn economy. So don't always feel like you're cutting them off completely. I like the idea of furlough, or even recognizing, and again, it's very case by case basis, but with smaller companies, you can definitely assign a price for the meantime. In the short run, you can assign a certain payout per project and almost engage someone on a project by project basis instead of a day or week basis, so that you know that your nut is covered, but also you're passing on the value for that person, and then give them the freedom and flexibility to work on it whenever they need to, so that they get it done as well. So there's a lot of strategies and a lot of ways to deal with that, Greg. And I know it's real, but I just want to give you the confidence that you're not the only person employing people. So if you feel like you have to lay people off and it's the time to do it, you should probably do it.
Yeah, Tim, I was going to echo that and mention this other quick tip, and that is if you have employees that have a vacation time that's built up, it's paid vacation, you might require them to take that, because if you're slow, it is a liability. You might as well have them use that liability so that when they come back, they're ready to go. But another thought, Tim, as you were talking, was I was just thinking of almost like a stratification of labor. And I don't like that word because these are people, but when you think of like full-time employees, you think of part-time employees, then we think of maybe our key vendors, then we think of freelancers. And maybe imagine if everyone had to take a step down. Maybe that's one way to think of it. If everyone has to take a step down because you as the business owner, you're clearly taking a step down during this time, you're taking a big pay cut, you're taking on a lot of risk. If you just said to everyone that's full-time, I need you to go part-time. Everyone that's part-time, I need you to work on a project basis. Everyone that's part-time might be go to freelance. Freelancers, we may be ending these engagements with you, or renegotiating your day rates because it just is what it is. That might be a strategy to help you think through that, Greg.
Yeah.
Sorry. Let me get to the next question. This is from Kelly Miller. We know and love Kelly. How are you ladies doing? She says, thanks guys, we are having issues getting paid. One of our clients has been delinquent for several months and they are in the office rental space. Would not be surprised if they go bust. And just got news that another client is, quote, working to adjust. and we'll advise when they can pay us. Any thoughts? These were billed long before any of this happened.
Yeah, I mean, I would just start with and assume that you're not going to get paid. And if I was going to build a strategy, I would make those zeros and start dealing with the reality that the money's not coming in. And whatever that might mean for delivering for that client, definitely have that honest conversation with them and move on. If you've already delivered, you have to kind of realize like it's just water under the bridge, and don't let that hang you up. There are opportunities of other things that to come and ways of covering your current team are really there. So see what outreach you can do, but I would definitely cross them off my client list and move them outside of my sales pipeline. This goes back to some of that of assessing who really fits your needs and the type of clients you want to work with. And if they're behaving this way without the down cycle, you're probably going to have to deal with reality that it's not going to come in during the crisis.
Yeah, Tim, I'm thinking of this quote that we covered earlier about,
I have a feeling, Joel. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just saying this quote that we shared earlier, I think is again, really salient here, because I'm just saying, hey, don't put hope in the things you cannot control, meaning this client may not pay me. What should I do? It's like, be proactive with what you do control. You do control the direct and indirect costs that you have in your business. So just think in those terms. I like your point, Tim. I mean, I hate the thought. I hate it because it's so painful. But if you sit down and created a cash flow projection based on, I'm not going to be paid by these people, and just say, what if that, or what about when that reality happens? Maybe don't think in terms of if, think about in terms of when. What decisions would you make? And make those decisions now when it's not nearly as emotional as when it becomes a crisis and the bank is calling you and calling their line of credit or those kinds of things. You want to have these decisions thought through in advance, take all that emotion and desperation out of it.
And I realize this is personal. I have a feeling some of Kelly's question was, is there something we could do maybe legally, like write letters or ask for something specific? And it is possible. Ask for partial payments or monthly payments. If they just say, hey, just pay me, 1/12 of it every month for the next year so that you have some small thing coming in, that's great. But I'll just say, I know this is personal and I deal with things a little bit different than others, but over the years, I myself have been in situations where people have accumulated accounts receivable and then were in a situation where they couldn't pay. And I thought to myself, I still want to be a person, if I saw them at a conference or if later they reached out to me, that there was enough grace that I can give them to get on the other side of it. So just recognize your response to the situation is what you're going to carry forward. It's going to make your character. It's going to present who you're going to be as a leader in this industry, and it's going to carry you forward this way. The rest of it, as callous as it sounds like, it is just money. And money is a mathematical calculation we have to work on a spreadsheet to get to the other side of. So I am sorry for the loss and the hardship of it's bringing it to you, but I also want you to be a strong person and a strong leader in this industry. So think about the repercussions of that as you're dealing with issues like this now or anytime when you're running a business.
So Tim, Kelly had another question that was kind of a follow-up. She said, one other question. I think there are tons of opportunities and have been for a while out there, but we are all dependent on the desires of our clients. So what happens when they are not along for the ride? It's not that easy to convince people to pay for cool new things when they have their own agendas and their own problems to resolve, right? Yeah, I feel that.
I almost want to bring in Justin on this one because Justin's one that seems to fight for the right to be part of the conversation.
Raise your hand. You're out there, Justin.
Yeah, Kelly, you're absolutely right. There is like a holdback in our industry, and some of that's political, right? And position, how the person positions themselves that's hiring you, and they don't want you to be better than them. There's also some specific. There's things that are already worked out. So when you're hired, you're really far enough down the food chain that you only can execute what's been part of that decision. Joel and I have this thing called the value ladder, and it's a way of thinking through how do you move from where you are now to be a more valuable position, so that, or to present more value so people understand that you can provide strategy and later vision for their. Joel, looks like you're trying to kiss the camera.
I know. Sorry, I was trying to change the settings, but hey, Justin says I'm going to allow him to talk. Are you here with us, Justin? Can we hear you?
Oh, just keep it short, Justin. That's my only request.
Oh, I'm here.
There you are, man.
Hey, mister. Yeah, tell us give us some encouragement of how you have dealt with clients that are, kind of want to put you in a pigeonhole you into a small area, but you know that you have more to contribute than what they're asking for.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, especially now, I get the sort of sentiment from clients who are a little weary themselves about sort of doing anything different. They've got their own problems, but they've also got budgets that they need to spend, and I think that's important. So all those shoots that aren't happening now, all that experiential work that's no longer going to happen, like all that is being funneled to post. And we're seeing a lot of clients saying like, okay, what are the post solutions for this? So if you're a post-production company, you're in a really great place now. If you're an animation house, especially, I think those opportunities are going to be there for you. If you're a live action production or live action company, it's a little tougher. I think the first thing I do is partner up with an animation studio and say, like, we have these clients, let's figure this out together, how we can keep these clients and work together.
That's a great idea.
If you're an audio house, I have no idea what to tell you. I don't know. I do see so much opportunity out there. And I think like getting out of that sort of like, oh no, what do we do mindset and just thinking like, okay, let's shift with the industry like we've always done, but let's do it in a major way right now. And I think it's really important. And I see a lot of people out there with their, we work remote emails. And I'm glad you brought that up because no one really does care if you're working remote. I mean,
yeah.
Rob and I are EP versus talking like, stop being a life raft for your clients. You're a battleship for them. Stop like, complaining and being like, oh, we're here to help. Like, anything we can do. We're working remote. Like solve these problems for them, with them. They have a ton of them. Like they don't know what to do with this money. I mean, that's a real thing. They're like, if we don't spend this client's money on this $2 million, Q3 campaign, then we don't get it next year, or we might lose the client. So what are the solutions we can get to with that?
Justin, I love that idea that because we were asking questions just about with live action owners and what they had to deal with. I love the idea that they actually have the client in hand and they have an opportunity to present a strategy to move them forward. So partnering with another group is a great way of doing that. I like Marcel. Justin for president. I agree.
Well, I appreciate you mentioned the whole don't be a life raft, right? Be a battleship idea, because there is something to be said for this. What was the famous Goethe quote about boldness and there's energy and greatness? I forget it. I'm totally screwing up the quote. But the idea being that each of you does have an opportunity to not just simply say, well, whatever it is that you need, call us. That's not leading. That's just reacting. So recognize there is sometimes a moment to call up a client and say, hey, I know things are nuts, but here's what I would do if I were you. This is what I really think is smart and wise. And it's time for us all to shift. And if you need help, we will help you get through this. If not, it's okay. We're here. I'm going to go call my next client and give him the same advice. By the way, there were a few hands that went up that we didn't get to. So if you want to ask a question verbally, but I'm going to go to the next Q&A. Feel free to raise your hands, folks. Paulo Ribeiro, if I'm pronouncing that right, said, is there a plan over time to create a database of all these agencies? I think that means like these studios and production companies here, to identify moments when they could collaborate with each other on projects. Well, I will tell you this, Tim, I'll answer, jump in and just say, inside 7 Ingredients, there's about 200 or so owners there. So there's that database, if you will. But also, I do know that, let's see, I think it's okay for me to say this, that Motionographer is working on some sort of a resource that they are just simply calling the index that might serve a similar need. But it's not yet been announced. So don't go out there making any public pronouncements out there and saying, Joel at RevThink said there's this thing coming. But Tim, do you want to add anything to what that kind of a resource might mean or how it might be valuable?
First, I'll just say hi to Paulo. I'm sorry we missed the meeting earlier today. But I see like Paulo's thinking the same lines that Justin just said too, is, hey, maybe within this group we're all have a common understanding. So if there is work to be engaged in other resources that are needed, is there a way to communicate with one another? And I would say the same thing too. Our 7 ingredients group is a great place to do there. I probably would do that we'll have to create a channel for this. We'll create a resources channel or a job postings channel inside of 7 ingredients, so we can have that.
Yeah, maybe a collaborations channel. That would be really cool.
Yeah, I'm sure Ethan started doing that already. We don't even think it worked very hard.
So here's the next question from an anonymous attendee. Do you have any suggestions or experience on how to keep our sales and recruitment teams during this time, thinking about their capabilities? I'm inferring from that salespeople are often on commission, people like reps. How do I keep them fully engaged and out there working for me? Do you have any thoughts, Tim?
Yeah, I'll say just a basic and simple stuff like make sure you have a sales pipeline. I love Pipe Drive. Turn that thing on, start filling that thing in. That's the best place to take your strategy, get it into reality. There's videos on how to use Pipe Drive. So while you're at home, instead of watching the news, watch those videos because that is one of the greatest tools I've seen to engage sales teams over and over and over again. And to be clear, I just want, we have to always say this when it comes to looking at sales tools. It's not an oversight tool. So you could judge them on how good they're doing or not doing. It's really a progress tool and a strategy tool. And I like to think about what's it take to move someone from one pipe to the other and having a conversation of the work to get there. So it's a great work analysis tool. But yeah, Pipe Drive, Joel has a link, I think, that we can share and that people sign up for it.
Ethan, maybe you can find, or maybe I can find it, but something else I was going to mention, Tim, is it's so great for collaboration because I love the idea that there's 2 or 3 or 4 people that are all looking at the sales pipeline and they're saying, oh, I see that person that is your deal in the interest stage. I think I can help you move them into intent because I know something. And now there's this collaboration that happens. And then of course, just being able to do a forecast and say, wow, our sales are going to suck this month, but next month, look, there's these 5 deals. I didn't realize next month we can actually be quite busy. We need to book some freelancers. Those kinds of decisions, of course, come from.
Well, why don't we open up another one of your modules from Jumpstart that help deal with some of that interest to intent sales stuff too. Maybe we'll find another module we can send out to you.
Yeah, probably the one on the marketing the modern creative firm or one of those. So yeah, I'm happy to do that. So I'll Tim, let's you and I sort of brainstorm on which one would be the most valuable to folks to feed them. I love that. Let me get to the next question here. Oh, we have a hand up from David Masters. So all right, David, I'm going to bring you in and just do us a favor, keep it short and sweet, and just ask us a question, and we'll do our best to answer you.
Hey, David Masters.
Hey, Tim.
Good to hear your voice.
Alex is here too.
Oh, hey, Alex.
Hey, guys. So we have a key account. It's a medical clinic. They're under a 12-month contract, and that contract includes a buffet of different services and deliverables. We just pick on a monthly basis. Right now, they're all but shut down because it's an elective medical clinic. So they haven't brought up the topic of our contract yet, but we're wondering how to get ahead of that conversation and remain relevant to their business. We've been helping them with messaging around the COVID-19, but we know that once that's out, they're shuttered until further notice for non-emergent issues. So to prevent that from facing an early termination, how do you recommend getting ahead of that?
Oh, I love it. Very practical question there, Alex. Yeah, so here's the thing, right? They clearly have a need and their followers have a need. They can provide information without getting a return for it. So what you're going to do is think through specifically, like, what messaging do they have? What's true about them? Let me start with that. What's true about them and will always be true about them. Therefore, what messaging should follow in this time of crisis? And then start working out what that messaging looks like and the appropriate channels for them. So you might have to reshuffle some of your strategy of where it's going to roll out, who's going to see it, if it's paid advertisement or free social media posts. But they clearly know something because they provide service in this time. And that need hasn't gone away. Just because people can't visit their office space and have a conversation with them and get the service that they're used to doesn't mean that the need has disappeared. And you have a group of experts willing to have that conversation and move things forward, then I would always leverage that. They will thank you. you will be their hero, that you got them through this period, and you provided a strategy that they couldn't find themselves. That's what you're looking for. Then obviously, if there's some reality to how to deal with your retainer, have that a secondary conversation. Almost make it sound like, hey, we're going to do this for you. This is a need in the world. We're going to take care of this for you, and we're going to roll this positioning out, almost regardless of what it means for our two parties. And in a way, like, that's the greatest value proposition that they'll keep you on forever. Not forever, but a very long time.
So let's see. Let me get to one more question.
And I just want to make sure David and Alex are 6 feet apart. You guys social distancing when you're doing that thing?
They're laughing.
Yeah, absolutely. Guests are 5 feet apart, and we stand in the middle, so that's 6 feet.
All right, very good.
Very good, very good. So let me get one more question here from Alejandro in the Q&A, and then I see Justin has a hand raised here. We'll get to you, Justin. Alejandro from Colombia. How you doing, sir? Hi, Joel. What's the best way to reach existing and potential clients without sounding too selly or too desperate? I want to hear them in order to propose strategies. I think you mean I want to talk with them to propose strategies when the situation gets back to normal. They'll be desperate to be marketing.
Go ahead, Joel. Take that one.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. It dovetails, excuse me, with a question from Emmett Armstrong after that. It says, do you think there will be a rush of pent-up demand in a few weeks once the dust settles? If so, what can we do to prepare to capture it? Well, I would say it could be in a few weeks, but something tells me it's going to be a few months, and the pent-up demand may even be 6 months or a year out. So this is where scenarios become really valuable. I want to look at my business and say, scenario, upside, maintain, and then downside, and then maybe downside in this kind of a scenario. But Alejandro, to your question, the best way to reach out is honestly just to reach out. I mean, reach out like a human being and go back to these points we talked about earlier. Have empathy, listen, and then start looking for ways to solve the new problems. And don't just go back to the traditional answers of, oh yeah, I know you guys have always done these things this way. We can solve it in a cheaper, faster way. It's not so much that. It's your moment to say, hey, based on what I'm seeing and other people are doing, I think you should be thinking about this. Have you thought about this type of approach, this type of strategy, this different way of how the deliverables can be executed? Maybe we shift from live action to claymation. Maybe we do an insert stage and we have a shoot with just 2 or 3 people that we know can work safely together. You just have to start really getting clever and creative. But again, it's really just all about reaching out and having human conversations and understanding where people are hurting and where they're scared, and meet them there first. Tim, do you want to chime in, or should we just go to Justin?
No, that's great. Yeah, let's get to Justin.
Okay, cool. Justin, I'm going to say, there you are. All right, allowed to talk. Hello, Justin. Can you talk to us?
Hey, how are you?
Good, Justin. What's your question today?
Good. Hey, first of all, love what you guys do. It's really awesome, and especially in these hard times, it's really nice to hear from you.
Oh man,
we have an largely experiential marketing as well as creative agency that we call a multi-sensory branding agency, specializing in food and drink. And I hate to say it, but in particular right now, at least particularly the wine industry, which is really falling on hard times. And my question is, we do a lot of eventing, a lot of really high touch point, actual blindfolded wine tastings. One of our partners is completely blind and brings the sensory innovation. When we can't be in person with people, we've had many events, a lot of our business cancel. What do you recommend when you can't be in person in these strange times?
Oh, it's such a great, Justin, you're one of the people that our hearts go out to, because it really, like, too many things shut down that are related and are kind of hitting the hardship there. But I'll tell you this, like, I've never been to one of your events, but I'm very curious on the outcome of them. Yeah. So the first place my mind goes is like education. Yep. There are clearly things that you have experts that are doing and clients that know the field better than anybody else. Is there a way that you could help position that client, record something, get the information out there so that knowledge base doesn't go away and it's encouraging?
Nice.
I know that wine is often a luxury item, and this doesn't feel like a time of luxury. So it's also kind of repositioning who that person is or what that industry is like in this time of need. So think of it like maybe moving it from a luxury item to a community item. And it's almost like, because we can't be together, wine is something that we can still share. By the way, whoever's in advertising can write that down. But there's a thought that like communion that has wine attached to it is a reality, and that wine brings that sense of familiarity and love, outreach to the outside world. There's a lot of things in real life attached to it. So it's almost a piece of art in a time of need. And you have an opportunity to kind of work with the client and develop what that artwork is and what that message is to bring comfort when people need to, education when they can't be there face to face and doing the usual. And it's your creative mind and thought process that's going to get them to the other side of it.
Hey, thank you very much. That's really helpful. And we will reach out to you guys personally. Thank you.
We'd love to hear you.
Yeah, look forward to it. Jamie, can you raise your hand again? I just thought it would be really good for you to share your brief story. I lost the text, or else I would read it myself. But could you raise your hand? And oh, there you are. I thought this was like one of those wow moments of this is the reality we're living in. Can you say hi, Jamie?
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yeah,
hi,
we can hear you. How are you? So I know you just had a comment that you shared here in the Q&A, and I was just curious if you would be willing to share that briefly with everyone here.
Yeah. I mean, we're a really small documentary video company and in Chicago. And I mean, like with everything that was happening, I just like started looking at my cash flow. On Monday, I, reached out to all of my clients and kind of like secured like what payments and checks I could kind of like get commitments from this week. But I just kind of leveled with all of my employees. I've got a lot of part-time staff and like kind of student editors and stuff. And I was like, this is what I can guarantee. I've probably got enough for the next payroll, but things are sliding out from underneath us. And I'm going to have to, we're going to have to do something. Like, I'm going to have to lay you guys off, basically. So I talked to them about unemployment. And I mean, I'm like so close with my team that it was just like, it was heartbreaking, but it was like a beautiful coming together, opening up our laptops and just like applying for unemployment together.
Wow.
And to make sure they're taken care of. And I mean, I agonized over it, like I said, like Sunday, Monday, but I was just like, I just want to make sure that they're on the first wave of like people applying for unemployment, so that by the time what our next pay period would be comes through, like they have something coming in, because I don't, there's so much uncertainty. I don't know how long this is going to last. And I'm just like that small of a shop. I don't have the kind of cushion that maybe some of you have prepared for to kind of like, support people through this time, paid time off, that kind of stuff. Like, we're just real small. So I just wanted to share my experience, and definitely happy to chat with anybody who's going through something similar about making that kind of a call. And it's tough, but when you face the truth, like, you just kind of have to share it and get through it.
Wow.
So.
Jimmy, you made me laugh, because it's such a sweet gesture to just live life together, isn't it? I mean, that's just like the reality of life in the moment, and you're all dealing with it together. So to not hide away and not be ashamed and not be worried, but to be able to do something together as hard as that is, it's just so beautiful. I love when real life comes together. So thanks for being that leader and having the courage to tell them up front and loving them in such a way that they could depend on you.
What I love there, Jamie, is that I think you're demonstrating to everyone else here that doing layoffs can be a loving response. I mean, it can be sometimes a solution that is not just simply the owner being greedy. And so I hope it gives everyone permission to maybe think about it in a new way. I remember when I had to do my first layoff, and it was not because of bad economics, it was just a bad fit. But I remember what got me over the hump was when a good friend of mine said, Joel, you're holding her back from what awaits her next. And if she's not a good fit there, the sooner she can move forward and into her new future, the better for her. And I realized, it was my fear that was actually holding back the situation. So I think in your story is just really beautiful because it's that moment when you kind of realize we're all in this together and we're all going to suffer, but hey, misery loves company, and let's move on and move forward.
Yeah, and I mean, I might have heard your story on one of your guys' podcasts because I listen to you guys all the time, but it was something about like, this is going to be painful. Like, I just remember hearing like, maybe it was you, maybe it was David C. Baker saying something like, this is going to be painful, but do you want it to be painful for a short time or a long time? And everything is changing so fast right now, but I just looked into next week and there's some things that are maybes that I could have kind of kept them hanging along, and kind of some of the things you guys are talking about, like setting these little benchmarks of like, if this happens, then you're going to make this call. But I did look at it like there's a lot I can't control. And so I'm going to make this call based on what I can control. Nice. And so, rather than, kind of like dragging this out for the next week, like allowing everybody to just kind of face this reality as quickly as possible and get through it together. That was kind of where I was coming from. Other things, like they still have their laptops and one of them still has like a camera, like there's things that we're doing like together to kind of ride this out where it's, I'm still able to kind of support them through this time, like with little benefits that way, but just doing the best I can.
Jamie, yeah. I'm just proud of you. I'm proud that you are taking those steps. Leadership is hard, and when someone steps up, they deserve the recognition. So really, truly, thanks for being who you are.
Yeah, one little last comment on what Jamie said there is, because I did this with an owner yesterday. I said, draw a line in the sand. Imagine a month ago, if I had told you this scenario was going to be happening, you would have said, oh, well, I'm going to draw a line in the sand that if this revenue or if this project gets canceled, then I'll make these decisions. But now that you have to do it today, you're all up in your head and stuck in your emotions and stuck. But if you had drawn that line weeks ago when it wasn't all emotional and it was very objective, then it's a much easier decision to make. So maybe think in those terms. What would I have done if I had known this was going to happen a month ago, and start making those decisions as if it was just playing out objectively right now. So Tim, what's our next question? Do we have a hand raised, or do we want to go to our Q&A here with,
let's go to Evelyn.
All right, Evelyn, let's see, hang on, let me go to attendees. Does she have her hand up?
No, it's in the Q&A.
Oh, Q&A, okay, cool, let me get this. So Evelyn, I don't know if this is Fal Sao or Fal, I don't know, I'm gonna butcher your name, so apologies. But Evelyn asks, hi everyone, thanks for all the great questions. Thanks Tim and Joel for sharing your experienced perspectives with us. In December of 2019, I decided to quit my job where I was burned out and extremely depressed, and planned to get 3 to 4 months off to position myself as an independent design studio. I was expecting to launch it by the end of April 1st. I feel it's a bad time, and I'm not positive at all about the next few months. I feel like I'm being defeated and challenge after challenge, and that I'll need to take whatever job shows up. What would be your perspective if you were in my shoes? Whew. Well, Tim.
Evelyn, thanks for sharing and being vulnerable, because that's a very real question. I feel like some of what we're feeling, the loss that we're feeling, is these dreams that we had, and honestly, the hard work we've put towards something that isn't going to be. I've been talking the last couple of days of the rituals that we're missing, the college graduations, the grandma's 100th birthdays, and like my kid's wedding are things that are really dreams that we have that aren't going to be realized in the same way. The goodbyes aren't the same, the hellos are the same, and what have you. So that is some of the issue that we're all facing in this moment. And it's almost a casualty beyond the numbers that they report on CNN. And in a very unfair way, it's not being recognized. So I just want to recognize that for you, that you were looking forward to an opportunity and it hasn't yet come. But let me encourage this, that we are on a journey in our creative career, and the step that you took is a step in the right direction. You have to break yourself free from the dependence on others in order to grow independently and make yourself a strong person. That's what you're going to have to rely on in a time of crisis and uncertainty, and as well as the reward you will get on the other side. So you've taken steps in the right direction to make yourself free and independent as a thinker. It doesn't matter where you work. So you can be an independent thinker and contribute in a company and working alongside another business owner. You can contribute independently and help your client and figure out some strategy. You can work alongside your client at their business for a while in order to get through that hard time. I personally put up a plaster. I put wall and plaster on walls while I was first starting RevThink, and in hard times, I've done really interesting outreach in order to get through the times. But I've never lost my independent edge. Joel, I want to say, like, at one point, weren't you even like driving an Uber just to kind of like get through what this thing is that you're going to be, and you needed to contribute to the family, but wanted to live something independent. That's right. What we all, yeah, right. But we are facing that every day, actually, as business owners and as independent employees. So don't feel ashamed. Don't think of it as a step back. It's really a mental state of where you're going in your creative journey. And we are moving into that stage where we'll contribute more into our community and eventually have the influence we want. If you're working through that influence play wherever you are and whatever season you're in and whatever crisis is there, and you're always thinking of others and making the world a better place. That's what we want from you, and that's what you get to give us. So please feel free to feel and react to the decisions that are in front of you the best and the most accurate or most appropriate way for your current situation, but live with that opportunity to grow as an independent creative.
So Tim, let me get to the Q&A. We're past our hour and a half mark here. So if people are starting to jump off, totally understand. But I want to try and get to a few more of these. Here's a quick one that you might be able to answer yes or no. So Seth Kleinberg, the Filmograph guys, he was asking, do you suggest getting all outstanding invoices out in the field, clear the books as best as possible right now?
No, yes and no. Here's the way I would do it, Seth, is I would actually wrap up projects as fast as possible. So if I was sorting my projects in priority, I'd wonder which ones, if I applied extra effort to, could I finish today and get that accounts receivable out there, so that that begins aging and that IOU comes in. That's for sure. But don't send out accounts receivable for money not earned. You might need to prioritize which projects you think you wouldn't get paid for and almost slow those down and let time decide if you're going to work on those, or have very open and direct conversations with your client to talk through these moments. One thing that you can do is reach out to certain clients, or all of them, depends on your relationship, but certain clients, and ask if they wouldn't mind adjusting the payment terms. Ask for like a midpoint payment or some kind of infusion of capital to keep you going. And if they have the resources and ability, it would be nice of them to pay you. I'm pretty sure that's a legitimate conversation to take place. But my answer being no is like, don't just do it to do it and kind of create some IOU that actually isn't true. You want to be very transparent and on the right page with your clients and making it a win-win continually until you deliver and get paid.
So you're going to love this one, Tim, because this is right to your point. This is a comment from Joao, and tell me if I pronounced it right. He's one of my Jumpstart alumni. Good to see you here. This comment is so awesome. He says, here's something that might be useful to others. Although they were happy with the service and work quality, one of our bigger clients wanted to use the kill fee and cancel a year-long project that had started just last month. Whew. We were able to renegotiate payment terms, meaning smaller payments as opposed to big chunks, and save the project by being candid, empathetic, pragmatic, and proactive. All it took was a phone call. So call your clients and help them feel safe and come up with solutions that work for them. Wow.
Wow, love it.
It's freaking awesome. Yeah, I was just noticing Colin, another alumni coming in proud here, saying that he's been asking for 100% upfront versus the normal 50%. I'm sure that's difficult, but I'm sure there's also a way that you can do that in a way that is, in a way, serving the client. Like in order for me to really deliver for you and guarantee a result, here's the terms that I need, rather than just being what I would call peevish, where you say, because of the crisis, we're now charging this way. There's obviously very smart ways to do these things. So Tim,
last question from Justin Barnes. You want to answer that last one, and then?
Yeah, let me see here. Is there any type of business insurance we all should have gotten prior to this crisis?
Of course.
Do we even want to know what the answer to that question is? What should we have done? We all should have sold our stock.
Right. It's called hindsight insurance. Isn't there an insurance that when you regret it, you can just have it?
Yeah.
That's a great question. And I wanted Joel to ask a question because insurance is going to be probably part of the new economy. I personally believe that what the government's going to bail out is the insurance companies, because they're not going to be able to meet with all the universal demand of these insurance claims. The insurance term that we're looking for here, or the contractual term that you can insure, is called force majeure, or like, think of it like act of God. When things happen that disrupt your current production pipeline. The ones I knew about before this, I'm not an insurance expert, the ones I knew about before this, you would do it on a project by project basis. So an easy example is in a live action shoot, you could insure that live action shoot for sickness or strike or weather or what have you. And you would pay for it based on the project. I would guess there was probably a global insurance policy as well. There's an insurance policy for everything, so there probably was one. I didn't know many companies that engaged in it, but I do know clients, these larger corporations, that's what they're going to depend on now. And so I think some of what we're seeing play out was actually, like, for example, I heard one of the large music festivals was waiting for the government to shut them down so that they can claim their insurance. And that's what kind of triggered me of like, there are probably large events, sporting events. I guarantee the Olympics was under insurance policy, or at least NBC's portion of it was insured. And they're using the force majeure clause in getting there. Here's the future though. The future, it's going to be required, right? And it's probably, now that it's going to be required by your clients, it's also going to be very expensive. So a pandemic's going to be part of the issues, almost like error and omission insurance has been required. And it's going to be, you're going to be carrying a few $1 million in this in the future. You might want to look at it proactively and build that up as part of your business strategy, but recognize it's definitely going to be part of our economy, probably for the rest of our careers.
Yeah, wow. Well, I feel like we should wrap it up here. We do have a few others in the Q&A. Let me just encourage everyone to jump into that Slack workspace and drop those questions in there. We'll find we'll create the channels that are needed, as we said, maybe a collaboration channel or some other channels that are needed to process these items. And then Tim and I will be back every day. Tim, what time do we do our live streams every day now, the daily briefing?
12:30 Pacific time, so that's 3:30 Eastern time. And Marcel will be back with us tomorrow. Our token, the token business owner will be joining us tomorrow as well.
All right. Well, look, this has been amazing. I hope this was beneficial to everyone. Thanks for the really cool feedback that we got from all of you. The fact that so many people are still here an hour and 45 minutes later tells me that there's just this need for community. There's this need for, let's get together and share what we're all going through and how we're feeling and think about strategies to help each other out. So Tim, thanks for playing a part here and facilitating and bringing your knowledge and expertise to bear.
Happy to. And we will be posting this on YouTube and LinkedIn and our social channels too. So if you miss something, keep an eye out for that. And if you have any other questions, you guys reach out to us directly through the Slack channel.
Yeah, somebody requested that we put the deck for this presentation, which we can do on Slack, and we'll also make sure we post a link to the replay up there. So thanks everyone again for being here today. We will see you tomorrow for the 30-minute daily briefing live stream. Keep it up. Keep up the good work. Remember, Tim, how did you phrase it? That hope really comes from confidence.
And the best way to deal with the future is to create it.
That's right. All right. Well, thanks again, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow, and we'll see you in the Slack channel, and keep up the great job. See ya.
Thank you all for being here.